The 2026 NFL Combine is well underway, and on today's show, we're going to be breaking down the 9 confirmed Jaguars draft prospect meetings that have been happened so far. Now, obviously, Liam Cohen and James Gladstone have not been at the NFL Combine, but they still send their scouts and some medical experts to do some background checks on these guys. So they've met with some of these draft prospects one way or another. And again, this is not the full list. I would assume that Jaguars have met in total, but these are the 9 that have been confirmed, at least in the public eye. So we're going to go over them today. But before we get into it, guys, y'all support has been amazing. We are on the road to 2,000 subscribers, but I wanted to kind of have a more focus-centric goal. The most videos or most subscribers we've gotten on a video this week has been 16. Can we top it? Can we get 20 new subscribers? It'd really appreciated by me, and it would show the bosses here that we are serious about growing this Jags channel here at Chat Sports. So without any further ado, let's get into today's show. You're watching Jags Now, presented by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Cullen Brown, and on today's show, we are going to be breaking down the 9 NFL draft prospects that the Jaguars have met ahead of the 2026 NFL Draft. Without any further ado, let's get straight into it. Starting off with, I think, the biggest name the Jaguars fans are hyped about seeing in terms of whenever these meetings became public, and that is Anthony Hill Jr., the linebacker out of Texas, who, shout out to our crew at Chat Sports, who has boots on the ground at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. They got this clip of Anthony Hill, who spoke about the Jaguars and, ironically, linebacker Devin Lloyd. Let's hear what Anthony Hill had to say.
Oh, I had a great time with them. It was a great interview. I had fun with them, and they're a great organization.
What about a guy like Devin Lloyd who does kind of some of the same things
Yeah.
did at Texas?
Yep, I watched some of the stuff he did. He had a great year last year, and I was looking forward to play with him if I could.
Love the thoughts there from Anthony Hill. Said it was a great meeting with the Jaguars. And again, he even said he would love to play with Devin Lloyd at some point. Unfortunately, I think Anthony Hill, if he were to be drafted by the Jaguars, it would be as Devin Lloyd's replacement. But Anthony Hill, he crushed it at the NFL Combine. I was curious to see what he would test at. I knew he was a physically gifted athlete, but you see the numbers on your screen. He performed really well. Had an overall grade of a 9.93 RAS score, which is one of the highest out of all the linebackers at the NFL Combine. And I think Anthony Hill is a day one contributor at the linebacker position the second he steps on an NFL field. You take a look at some of the pros and cons surrounding Anthony Hill, and I think that he's got some skills that are going to translate to the next level as following. He's got really impressive instincts. He understands how to diagnose whether it's a run, pass, play action, and is really smart at communicating it. He just shows those impressive instincts if you watch him at the University of Texas. He can cover both well in man and in zone coverage. Some shiftier guys can give him a little trouble, but he does well enough, and I think he is the type of athlete that can keep young running backs and any running back really in front of him. And in zone coverage, he's got a good feel for the most part. And he does give good pass rushing upside, whether he's blitzing from that off-ball linebacker spot or even off the edge. Texas even kind of was moving him around as a chess piece last season. I think he does really well in terms of giving a pass rush. He does occasionally allow cutbacks. He can be a little aggressive in pursuits in the run game, so cutback runs can happen. He's not great in blitz disguise. You know when he's coming. Right, he's pretty good, or he's not the greatest in terms of disguising his blitzes, which is something that, Jaguars or anybody coaching staff can help improve whenever he gets to the NFL, so I'm not too worried about that. And he does tend to tackle high at times. Again, technique issues, but I don't think it's something that's a consistent worry, but at times he can tackle a little high, and we know the old saying, right? Low man wins. So I thought this was also really interesting from Lance Zierlein, who does a great job covering the NFL draft for NFL.com, and he compared Anthony Hill, in terms of an NFL comparison, to Bobby Wagner, one of the greatest linebackers of his generation. He had, obviously, a really successful career in Seattle. He's kind of bounced around. He's played for Los Angeles, Washington, the Rams, other places. But he's been one of the better linebackers, like I said, along with Luke Kuechly, in terms of when he was playing. So if Anthony Hill could be any bit close to Bobby Wagner, you're getting an absolute steal in the second round. And I do think there is a possibility that the Jaguars could look to target Anthony Hill in the second round with the 56th overall pick. Do they maybe trade up to try to go get Anthony Hill? I'm not sure, but I'd be interested in Hill as a Devin Lloyd replacement. I think he's got the potential to play either or in terms of the Mike or the Will linebacker spots. He's really athletically gifted, really smart, instinctual player. And again, if he's a bit of Bobby Wagner, which I'll take Zierlein at his word for, I think he could be a day one contributor and somebody that Anthony Campanelli can really plug and play into this defense, and you get him on that rookie scale contract. I think that if the Jaguars decide to go in this direction, I'd be all for it. Moving on to the second prospect that the Jaguars moved on to, and that is Keith Abney, the cornerback out of Arizona State. Really fun corner that, I had done a little bit of research on before the Jaguars had confirmed and meeting him. And the more I kind of read about this guy, the more I have become a fan of what he could potentially bring to the Jaguars in terms of a defensive prospect. But let's get into what Lance Zierlein had to say about Keith Abney. Again, does a great job of covering the NFL draft for NFL.com, and he said the following in terms of about Keith Abney II. He's a feisty boundary corner with the makeup to slide inside and become a problem for offenses as a pro nickelback. Abney's coverage IQ and competitiveness are loud on tape. He pairs impressive instincts and recognition with the ball skills of a receiver. He's physical and press, but he loses ground and picks up penalties when it hits the third level. Again, that's a problem with a lot of young corners, not something that Abney's alone in. His top-end speed and closing quickness from depth are average. He also has average in mirroring a shifty release, so rookie reps inside could be a little bumpy. Abney's profile is a zone-matched nickelback with a physical press presence. Now, also just to keep in mind for the Jaguars, Monteric Brown, a.k.a. Buster Brown, and Greg Newsome are set to become free agents. So the Jaguars could look to potentially improve the cornerback room, whether it's in free agency or the draft. And I think Keith Abney would be an interesting addition to this Jaguars room. And like Greg Zierlein mentioned it, I think he could be a really good zone corner at the next level, whether it is that nickel spot or maybe plays outside. I think he's got really good press technique as well. And, his 2025 stats in terms of his coverage grades, I mean, you just look at the numbers here in terms of his regular stats, 44 tackles. He does have a sack, 14 pass breakups. So, again, not afraid to mix it up. Can get a little grabby at times, but, he's only allowed like a 44% coverage grade in terms of his completion percentage, quarterback rating of a 46.1 when targeted. So, really good stuff from Abney. And also, this was a fun fact that I did not realize when I was scouting Keith Abney. When he was younger, around 13 years old, he was a national speed roller skater. And, in fact, I think he won nationals when he was a kid and speed roller skating. So you already know his core strength is going to be something crazy. And you need that as an NFL cornerback when you're constantly moving and shifting and, getting low and all this, that, and the other. So I think Keith Abney is one of the more slept-on cornerbacks in this draft. I've seen him go as high as late round 1, although I project him to be more of a day 2 guy myself. But if Keith Abney were to enter this Jaguar system, along with guys like Travis Hunter, we'll see what Jarian Jones' future looks like, Jordan Lewis, in terms of where they're playing him, obviously. We'll see Caleb Ransall as well. I think Abney would fit right in to what the Jaguars are doing. So if they were to go this route and pick 56, I'd be all for it. But I want to hear from you guys because I like both these prospects. I think these were two of my favorites that I heard the Jaguars were meeting with. But if you guys had to pick, if you were James Gladstone, clock's ticking, Jaguars are on the clock, it's pick 56, you have to pick one of these guys to draft. I want you to pick one for me. Type AH if you're drafting Anthony Hill, or type KA if you're drafting Keith Abney. Let me know down in the comments section below. Getting into a running back that the Jaguars held a meeting with, and this one I had previously taken on a Jaguars mock draft, and I think he could fit really well with Bashal Tutin if the Jaguars decide to move on from Travis Etienne, and that is Jonah Coleman, the running back out of Washington, who had a really productive season for the Huskies there in the Big Ten. 156 carries, 758 yards. He also had 31 receptions for 354 yards. He doesn't have the game-breaking speed, but pound for pound, he might be the strongest running back in this draft class. I mean, he is somebody that you meet him at the point of attack, there's not a lot of runs that don't go falling forward. So I'm really impressed with Jonah Coleman and his ability. Again, doesn't have that long speed. He also had one of my favorite quotes in the entire combine saying that, listen, if you're not great in pass protection, which he admitted he needed to improve, you're protecting a guy that's a $100 million quarterback and you're getting paid $2 million, who do you think the team's going to prioritize? So he's got his priorities straight in terms of kind of lining things up in terms of how he wants to get better as a football player. But you look at this Jaguars running back depth chart. Obviously, Travis Etienne, we'll see what they do in terms of whether or not they make him, bring him back to Jacksonville or whether they let him go in free agency. But I really like Bashal Tutin. I think he provides explosive, ability as a Jaguars running back. Is he ready to carry the load as a number one, as a bell cow? I'm not sure. LaQuinn Allen gives you that special teams versatility. And then you've got, Jonah Coleman potentially filling in for Travis Etienne. I get a little Thunder and Lightning vibes there. Could be something that's really interesting. Now, he's a guy that could go round 2 or round 3, but like I mentioned, I like the potential pairing of Jonah Coleman and Thunder, Lightning, just power, physical runner. I think Coleman has a really great break tackle ability. Tutin can really stretch the field with his home run ability. And then you throw in LaQuinn Allen there, for a few snaps. that could be something that works in Liam Cohen's system for years to come. So keep an eye on Jonah Coleman as this draft process continues. Moving on to another prospect that the Jaguars met up with. This one, I'm going to be honest, before the Jaguars announced they met with him, I had really little to no knowledge of Travis Burke, the offensive tackle out of Memphis, who previously played at Florida International for the 2023-24 season before transferring to Memphis for 2025, and graded out pretty well. 84.5 PFF grade overall as a blocker, 81.5 pass blocking grade, 84.2 run blocking grade. Some really solid reps there, but as you see there at the bottom of your screen, he's a big dude. 6'9", but 315 pounds. That's something that I'm not sure is going to be looked at as, hey, you're a really big dude. Speed rushers could potentially give these guys problems, but as a day 3 potential swing tackle option, I think it really could work out in terms of, okay, you're probably going to move on from Chuma Edoga. I would be shocked if he's somehow on this team for 2026. Walker Little, on the other hand, he's got this cap number that I'm not sure if you're going to be able to trade him. Doesn't really make sense to cut him either. So maybe you bring him back and then bring in a guy like Burke. So, yeah, could be an option as a day 3 pick. We'll see. I mean, we'll go back into the numbers and see how he tests, but really intriguing prospect if you're Jacksonville. And like I said, they do need to improve that swing tackle position. He's the first known tackle that the Jaguars requested to interview. Moving on to some more guys here. We're going to start off with Le'Veon Moss, who, whenever I was researching running backs for this upcoming draft, he is a guy that, I'm not going to lie, has a lot of red flags. I mean, in terms of he's not a great pass catcher, not great in pass pro, and he does get injured a lot. I'm pretty sure he's injured 3 out of his 3 seasons for Texas A&M, if I'm not mistaken. But you see the numbers on screen. He's got 77 carries, 404 yards, 6 rushing touchdowns on 5 yards per carry. He is explosive. He's got a nasty stiff arm, really brings a physical presence. Again, probably a day 3 player. There's not many running backs that I would have as day 2 guys. In fact, Jonah Coleman and maybe Jadarian Price are the only 2 that I would have listed as day 2 guys if I'm Jacksonville. But he's not great in the passing game, as I previously mentioned, and he's probably going to be somebody that, look, if you want to take a flyer on day 3 and just say, hey, compete with LaQuinn Allen and, DJ Dallas for some, special team snaps / workload, I don't mind bringing him in, but also not one of my favorite running back draft prospects in this draft class. Moving on to Eli Stowers, the tight end out of Vanderbilt. Now, this one could be interesting. This one, to me, feels like a day 2 guy. Now, he could slip to day 3 at the tight end position for Vanderbilt. It's really Kenyon Sadiq and the rest of the tight ends here in this draft class, but that doesn't mean that Eli Stowers doesn't have a lot of things that he can bring to the table. He's a vertical threat, not known for his inline blocking, but you see the numbers on screen. Over 700 yards his senior year at Vanderbilt at over 12 yards per catch. Does have a little bit of a drop issue with 4 drops this year, but in terms of how you're looking at this tight end room next to Brenton Strange, obviously Hunter Long and Johnny Mundt, they're guys that Jacksonville could look to potentially move off of this offseason, so they could maybe be looking to revamp the entire tight end room, which we'll get into 2 other guys that they requested to they did interview, at the NFL Combine. But in terms of Eli Stowers, he's more of the vertical passing threat that could complement Brenton Strange, maybe if you run some more 2 tight end sets. So I think Eli Stowers probably is a round 3, maybe you get him in day 3 as a potential target, but something worth keeping in mind if you're Jacksonville. Antonio Williams, the wide receiver out of Clemson. Now, this guy, he's an interesting player. He's got really good run after catch ability, and he's a solid producer at Clemson his senior year. In 10 games, caught 55 balls for 604 yards, 4 touchdowns, and again, really fluid route runner. He's got some punt return flexibility as well that I think can really play into his strengths in terms of making a roster. Not, again, the most physically presence guy, and I don't think he's going to be a guy that overwhelms you with his athleticism, although he is really quick in space, kind of a make-you-miss guy in terms of, trying to make guys run after the catch or whatever. But still, when you look at this, wide receiver room in terms of Jacksonville, right, you obviously got your big 3 in terms of, obviously, Parker Washington, Jacoby Myers, and then Brian Thomas Jr. Travis Hunter will play offensive snaps kind of at a situational basis. You're going to need to fill out the rest of that room. Now, whether you bring a guy like Tim Patrick back or somebody else in for Jacksonville, I do think they're going to look to add to this wide receiver room this offseason. So could they potentially add Antonio Williams? We'll see. I think it'd be a curious option to go with on day 3. Now, let me know down in the comment section, because I've been kind of, doing some research in terms of my favorite draft sleepers. Name your player in the comment section. Who's your favorite draft sleeper that you are a fan of? If I had to give one, I mean, he's kind of, risen up draft boards this combine, so he may not be much of a sleeper anymore. I was a big Malachi Lawrence fan out of UCF. I think he's one of the better edge rushers in this draft class. But you guys let me know down in the comment section below who's your favorite draft sleeper. And to finish it off here, we're going to talk about the two other tight ends that the Jaguars interviewed during the NFL Combine kind of week, and it's Oscar Delp and Jack Indries, who Oscar Delp, more of a short area quickness, has soft hands. I think he can provide something as a receiving tight end for the Jaguars. Alongside Brenton Strange. He's an average athlete, and he does need to get stronger, especially if he wants to be more of a blocking tight end, which he'll have to be at the next level because I don't really project him to be a tight end one per se. So, again, something as an option, definitely a day 3 guy as well, along with Jack Indries, who is a really good blocking tight end. He plays through contact, not afraid to get physical in the run game or in pass protection for that matter, but below average quickness, does have some drop issues. There's some things that could be worked out there. But again, as day 3 guys, I don't necessarily mind it. And the Jaguars, this tight end, in terms of the list that we just, showed you guys, tight end was clearly the major group in this one. And the Jaguars are clearly interested in this tight end group in terms of potentially adding around Brenton Strange. So it wouldn't shock me if Brenton Strange does get a contract extension this offseason and they look to move off of guys like Johnny Munt and Hunter Long and maybe replace them with guys like Oscar Delp, Jack Indries, or an Eli Stowers, for example. So something to keep an eye on. You always want to make sure you pay attention to these trends because teams will tell you a lot of the times what they're thinking. You just have to pay attention to little details. I think tight end could be a position the Jaguars draft come April. Thank you guys so much for sticking through that entire video. And if you made it to the end of the video, you are what we call a real one here at Chat Sports. And as I've been stating all week long, we're starting this here at Jags Now. It's a little Duval roll call, baby. So if you made it to the end of the video, give me a Duval down in the comment section. And again, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get 20 subs on this video. If we get 20 new subscribers, how about next week we do a little post-combine mock draft? Something could be interesting. I would love to make it for you guys. But until next time, I'll see you on the next one. Thank you, guys, Jaguars fans. And as always, Duval. See you now on the next one.